Hi guys, Jordan here from DeeperThanBlue Unify. Today we're going to be talking about some performance testing, specifically with JMeter. We're going to be discussing today what is JMeter and how to set it up, building a test in JMeter and some of the components, and how to execute the test from a debug perspective and a runtime perspective. So what is JMeter? JMeter, in Apache's own words, is an open source application written in Java designed to load test functional behavior and measure performance. It can load test web services, SOAP and REST web services like APIs, FTP, mail services as well, such as SMTP, POP3 and IMAP, and many more. They're just some of them, some of the capabilities of JMeter. We're going to discuss how to build a test and the components within it. So some of the virtual users, how they get constructed and how HTTP requests get recorded and executed as well. We're also going to discuss how to run it in GUI mode and non-GUI mode, so like a command line interface. The benefit of running it from a command line interface as opposed to the actual front end GUI is that sometimes it can rinse quite a lot of your laptop or PC performance or some of your CPU. So when you've got a stress test or a really high amount of virtual users, a laptop or a low-end PC might not be able to handle that. You want to run it from a command line. What we're not going to cover in this session is recording tests. There is a way to record tests using something like BlazeMeter or the JMeter recorder. We're just going to look at constructing one manually today, just to get the core components of JMeter and understand them. We're not also going to go through the advanced components like assertions and any of the more in-depth monitoring tools. We'll cover that in another session. So to start, we need to jump on the Apache website. The URL is jmeter.apache.org, the same domain that I've actually got up right now. If we go to the left section and go to download releases, we need to download the respective file type for your OS. Obviously in my case it's TGZ. Once we've downloaded this, you need to extract this onto a reasonable place. I've got mine on my desktop. And you should have a bunch of loose files. There's no installer for this, as the configuration of your JMeter is quite important. My configuration is going to be different than my colleague's configuration, so it doesn't come as an installer. So we just need to open the JMeter jar file named Apache JMeter. You'll find this in the bin folder, in the root folder of the Apache JMeter folder. So if we give this if we open this, it might not open straight away on Mac because it's from an unidentified developer. Just right click and open. It should give you the option then. On Windows you shouldn't have an issue. So this is the Apache JMeter interface. This is the GUI mode. We use this to construct tests, to build them. You'll find you've got three sections. You've got your header at the top. Your header contains the general stuff you might see in a header, so the save, copy, paste. But it also contains the ability to disable and enable some of the elements for when you're kind of messing around and figuring your test out. It gives you the ability to start your tests. It gives you the ability to clear down some of your logging, and gives you the ability to search through your test and clear down your search as well. On the left section here, this is where your test components lie. So as you add elements into certain parents, like this, these are just some of the elements you get. I'm going to go through these momentarily, but it'll be nested inside of their parents, and JMeter runs top down. So it'll start with the test plan, then move on to the thread group, complete everything within the thread group, and then move past, etc. Let's just clear that. We'll jump into the elements shortly after this. On the right hand side, you'll find the configuration for the element you've selected. So now we've selected the test plan, we can change some of the elements. We can change some of the components on the test plan. So we can add some user-defined variables for this test plan. I'm just going to go through 4 types of elements today. We're going to go through the test plan, which is already there by default. We're going to go through a thread group. We're going to go through a HTTP request, and we're going to go through a generic listener, such as a results tree. We've already got a test plan by default. They always come with a test. You can't delete them. Not to my knowledge, anyway. No, you can't delete these. So the way it works is they're kind of nested inside of each other. So a test plan will contain something like a thread group or a HTTP request, or they'll contain the elements and it'll run through them iteratively from top down. So we need to create a set of virtual users. So our example is we're going to be throwing about 10 users at a landing page for a website. We're going to need to tell the test how many users we want. So if you right click the test plan and click add, and then clicks Threads Users and select a thread group. This thread group will ask for three things here in the properties menu on the right hand side. That'll be the number of threads, that's the users, so we're going to have 10. The ramp up period in seconds. This is how long it takes to get to that 10 users. So if we set 10 seconds, that will mean that it will hit 10 seconds in 10 users in 10 seconds. That's 1 user a second. If we set that to 5, it'll get to 10 users in 5 seconds. So that's 2 users a second. The loop count is how many times it repeats this. You can set it to infinite until it crashes, or you can set it just as 1. We're going to set it as just 1 for now. The next thing we're going to want to add is a test step. So if we right click and click add, they still have to be in the thread group, as we're indicating that this test step is for these set of virtual users. We want to click add, sampler, and HTTP request. So we're going to just land on a generic website. The website we're going to be using is theinternet.herokuapp.com. I find it a good website if you're trying to learn automation. So we're going to put this server name IP in there. We do not want the protocol type, as that's a separate field here. So I'll put HTTPS. So we're just going to do a normal GET request to the home domain. Port number can leave us nothing because it's going to default to 8080 or 8888. I can't remember which one it is. And that's the test steps done. We can run this now by pressing run, but nothing's going to happen. Let's just save this first, actually. As we can see up here in the top right, the numbers are going up, and they're pretty much dying straight away because it's finishing the test. It's never reaching 10 users as the test is already finishing too quickly. But we don't know what's going on. We have no idea what's happening. So we need a way of listening to this and having a look into the test. That is a listener. So if you jump onto the thread group again, click add, and we go down to listeners at the bottom. The most simple type for debugging your test is the view results tree. What this results tree does is it allows the test to output the results of every single HTTP request or any sampler in general. It'll output the results of that into this tree here. So if we press play, we can have a look. So you can see all these requests finishing straight away. Well, let's just stop. I think he's already finished all 10 of them. So we can see the load time, connect time, latency, the size of the request, the response code, as well as dig deep into the actual request and the response data itself. If we want to add a more complex journey to this, you can use the network tab. Essentially, that's what we're trying to imitate here. We're trying to imitate network traffic. So if you jump onto the network tab on Google Chrome or Firefox, if we record, say, the second step of this would be clicking a link, so A/B testing. You'll get a lot of junk, not junk, but the JavaScript, the CSS, the font files and images. What we want to just get is the document request here. So if we open the first one, which is the A/B test, you'll find it's a GET request to this domain /A/B test. So essentially we want to copy what we've already got. So let's add another one. Let's just drag that out of the way so it's a bit more organized. So we're trying to copy this. We'll copy this domain, put it in there, HTTPS. But now at the end we want A/B test to simulate what the network traffic was just that we just did there. You'll find that we're reusing, when we're creating a test, we're going to reuse the same server names and same IPs over and over again. And a quick way to store these so we can change them quickly, say you might have a QA environment or a prod environment as well as a pre-prod. If you want to be able to test on multiple environments without having to constantly change server names, we can just grab this URL, go to the test plan, and add it as a user-defined variable. So we're going to give it the name base URL and put it in there. The way we reference this in our test is by using string interpolation. So we use $, then those squiggly brackets, and we put the variable name in there. And we just need to ping this in all of these. We're going to clear down, this button here clears down the debug results. I'm going to clear all those down and we're going to run it again. And this should now do 2 requests. So we've got the request for the Heroku app and then the A/B test. It starts to get a little bit messy, so this is where you might want to start labeling your requests a little bit better. So page load A/B test. Let's clear that down and run it again. Still can get a little bit messy. There is an alternative method of clearing these out is to use a transaction controller. So a transaction controller for me is just a way of neatening up these requests. They're essentially like test steps and then our test step parents. I don't know how to explain them, but if we go to thread group and then we go to logic controllers and then transaction controller at the top, we need to put these requests in this transaction controller. Let's neaten it up a little bit, and then we can, nothing will change by running this test right now. So if we run it now, I'll just show you, nothing's changing apart from there's an extra transaction controller. This is essentially the overview of both of these, so if any of these two fail, this one will fail as well. But to make it a little bit neater, we're going to take generate parent sample here. I'm going to run that again, and you can find that there's no individual HTTP request in these outputs, so it's just going to be outputted as one sampler, and then we can dig into them individually. It makes it a lot easier to understand what's going on, a lot easier when it comes to debugging these tests. So now we've got a working performance test essentially. This isn't a very complicated performance test. They can get very complicated, and there's usually a lot more steps involved than just one or two. But now we've got a generic test where we understand the components of JMeter. We're going to figure out how to run this in a non-GUI mode or a non-GUI mode. This right now runs on my laptop fairly easily. There's no performance impact to us running this, but when you've got tons and tons of requests, especially if you've got tons and tons of threads as well, you go up to 1,000 threads, your laptop or a low-end computer will not be able to run past 600 sometimes. So you're going to have to run this in a non-GUI mode. So to do that, we need to save our file. Click here, just double check. Probably not the best place to do it. So I'm going to put this here. I'll put this in the root folder. So we want to open a command line here. And then we want to run the JMeter command. So JMeter might not work off the bat. So we want to go bin JMeter, and we want to say -n to say we're not using GUI mode or GUI mode. And then we need to preference the test with the parameter t, and we need to give the file name. So we're in this folder right now, we're in the Apache JMeter folder, so it's just sample.jmx. We need to output these results somewhere. I think it outputs them as a CSV file, so we need to press -l and then preference a name, so test results.jtl. If we run that, that's going to run that test and provide us an output there. It's really good because you can interface this with a CI/CD kind of pipeline, so you can automate these even more. So there'll be performance testing straight away as soon as you've deployed code. So they're the fundamentals of JMeter. We're not going to go through recording of tests or advanced components in this session. We will cover them in the next session. A basic overview on that is that we can record tests using a recorder in JMeter or an external tool like BlazeMeter, and that can record traffic in your browser, and you can port that directly into JMeter rather than having to do them all manually. The advanced components would be advanced assertions or custom Java or even more advanced listeners. We're going to cover that in another session. If you want to get in contact us at DeeperThanBlue. The URL is on the screen now, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you.